With Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Allison.
So let me start with this attack in New York. The president just tweeted, he said the terrorists came into our country through what is called the Diversity Visa Lottery Program, a Chuck Schumer beauty. I want merit-based. How is this Chuck Schumer's fault?
Well, I assume, I know the president's referring to this Diversity Visa Lottery Program. Senator Cotton, Senator Perdue have legislation that would eliminate that. I support that. I think it's just good common sense, and the president supports that. I think that's something we need to do. Obviously, today, mostly it's about our heart goes out to the folks who've been impacted by this evil terrorist act. But that program needs to go, and that's what the president's referring to. I don't know the history if that was a bill that Chuck Schumer sponsored or supported or what.
It was.
What I do know is the president's right. That program needs to go.
So Chuck Schumer, I believe, sponsored it, but it was a bipartisan piece of legislation, and it was signed into law in 1990 by President George H.W. Bush.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the facts. What we know is the situation today, and I think common sense would tell you it's time to change our immigration program, and this program, this diversity visa program, needs to go. That's what the legislation would do. Again, I think if you talk to the American people, they would say, yeah, that makes just good common sense when since 1990, this terrorist threat has taken on a whole new form, as we all know too well. So let's change it, and let's do what we campaign on. You know, I say this all the time. Pretty simple what the focus of our job should be. What did we tell the American people we were going to do when we ran for this job? We told them we were going to build a border security wall. We told them we were going to have stronger vetting for refugees and folks who come into this country. And this diversity visa program is something that should be changed. That's what Senator Cotton, Senator Perdue's legislation does. Let's pass that legislation and do everything we can to address these kind of situations to hopefully prevent more of them from happening in the future.
Yeah, look, it's a fair conversation for us to have. Obviously, this morning, it's 15 million people apply for it from around the globe every year. As I understand it, only 50,000 make it in, and it is supposed to obviously continue America's reputation and history as a melting pot. So it's open to countries where not a lot of immigrants come from, and that was the motivation behind it. But I think my question to you was, by focusing on Chuck Schumer, why make a partisan attack this morning?
Well, I mean, I think you have to ask the president that, but I think the underlying point is exactly right. This is a program that needs to change. This is a program that needs to be eliminated. It was just a few weeks ago when Senator Cotton, Senator Perdue were at the White House and they unveiled this legislation, the RAISE Act. I think the American people would say this is something that needs to pass. You're right. Today is a day where we say, let's figure out what happened yesterday. Let's pray for the families who've been impacted. But thinking about solving this problem, this is a good common sense way to do it. And I certainly support what the president wants to do and what Senator Cotton wants to do.
Okay, so let's talk about what happened earlier this week. What were your thoughts on Monday as you watched Paul Manafort and his business associate Rick Gates surrender to the FBI?
I mean, look, it looks like they've done some things wrong, but that's why you have a trial, and we'll figure out. They've obviously pled not guilty, but the indictment goes from 2005 to 2015. Prior to any Trump campaign, and there's obviously nothing in the indictment that talks about collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Here's what we do know, Allison. We do know that the Obama Justice Department tried to influence the campaign last year, with Mr. Comey calling it a matter, not an investigation, with Loretta Lynch meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac 3 days before Secretary Clinton's scheduled to be interviewed by the FBI. We do know that someone tried to influence the campaign, namely the Obama Justice Department. So that's a big story. And we learned last week that if there was any collusion, it was Hillary Clinton's campaign paying for the dossier, paying Fusion GPS to produce this dossier, and the Democrat National Committee paying for that. So that's what we learned last week. I think that's important news, and why it's important that we're now going to investigate those issues moving forward. Congress is going to investigate those, which we should have done a long time ago.
Congressman, why do you seem more focused on Hillary Clinton and what happened than on an investigation connected to a sitting president and an election that was less than a year ago?
Allison, I'm focused on the facts. The fact is the Attorney General of the United States told the FBI Director of the United States in the summer of 2016 to call the Clinton investigation a matter, not an investigation. Why would he do that? In the summer of 2016, the FBI, or excuse me, the Attorney General of the United States meets one day before the Benghazi report is scheduled to come out, 3 days before the FBI is scheduled to interview Secretary Clinton. The Attorney General meets with Bill Clinton on the tarmac.
Yeah.
And if it was just golf and grandkids that they were talking about, why in the days after, in email communications with the public relations people, did she use the name Elizabeth Carlisle? I mean, I'm focused on the fact. I'm focused on the fact that the Democrat National Committee paid for this dossier.
On the Hillary Clinton facts than President Trump. And I just want to ask you one question about that.
Because there's been no evidence of any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, but there's all kinds of evidence showing links between the Clinton campaign and the dossier, and maybe the dossier, the dossier became the catalyst for the surveillance and stuff done on the Trump campaign. Think about that.
Had 3 passports with 3 different numbers. He applied for 10 passports.
And you know what?
10 different U.S. passports. Hold on, Congressman. Over the course of 10 years, he was the Trump campaign chairman. One person who was a foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his relationships and associations with Russians. Why don't those get your attention?
Well, they got everyone's attention. They've obviously got your attention. I will again. I'll point out if Mr. Manafort did something wrong, then he'll be prosecuted for that, and he'll have to serve the sentence. I understand that. Same with Mr. Gates. That's fine.
The nexus between Manafort and the Trump campaign is what we're talking about. The Trump campaign hired him as their campaign chairman. I mean, talking about extreme vetting, it sounds like the president believes in extreme vetting for everybody except his own staff.
And then he got rid of him a few months later, and there's been an indictment going back to 2005 through 2015. None of that was during the time when he was involved with the Trump campaign.
And a guilty plea.
And it all deals with tax evasion and not filling out forms properly and not giving information to the federal government. And he should be held accountable for that if, in fact, he committed some wrongdoing, which it looks like he may have. So that's all fine, and let's do that. But tell me where the link is with Russia.
Okay, Congressman.
There is none. There is none. But we do know Hillary Clinton's campaign paid Fusion GPS to produce this dossier, and it looks like this dossier became the catalyst for surveillance and wiretapping.
We have so much breaking news. We also know that the Trump campaign kept setting up meetings and trying to get dirt from Kremlin-backed Russian operatives on Hillary Clinton. I mean, you seem to just be omitting that part, which is always head-scratching. But listen, we have so much breaking news, we have to leave it there. Congressman, thank you very much for being on with us this morning. We are following a lot of breaking news, including all the details about the terror attack in New York City. Let's get
Rosenstein and Mueller should step aside and the Inspector General, at least until it can be decided on a special counsel. Have them step aside where the investigation is carried out. We also have another Inspector General, just as an aside, investigating. And that's Andrew McCabe, the #2 man at the FBI, who I do not understand how he can be involved in the administration of the agency that now its top officials are so suspect, and the American people cannot have any faith or trust. The president certainly can't have any confidence in these people. Why in the heck don't they move out?
And, 3 things.
Of the agency until it can be resolved?
Yeah, Lou, I would say 3 things need to happen. One, there needs to be a limit. Congressman DeSantis has a bill that would limit the amount of time that Special Counsel Mueller can do this investigation, so it doesn't just go on forever and ever. Second, there should be a special counsel. We sent a letter from the Judiciary Committee 3 months ago asking for a special counsel to look into Secretary Clinton, Mr. Comey, Fusion GPS, Clinton Foundation, all these issues. And then I think third, Congress, and this is going to happen because it was announced last week from the respective chairman, Congress should look into these issues. So we should have investigations into these issues. Clinton, Comey, Lynch, Fusion GPS, dossier, all these things. We should look into all these issues as well. Those 3 things are what needs to happen so the American people can get the truth.
I have to say that Speaker Ryan, Leader McConnell, these are intentional poison pills that they are putting into these bills. Don't you think? I mean, they're not, these are lots of things, but these people have a clear understanding of the consequences of their actions, don't you think?
I just don't want to get myself to believe that either of the leaders of the House or the Senate are actively trying to sabotage not just this president, but their own party, and more importantly, sabotage the American people and jobs. Lou, that would be tantamount to a level of not quite treason, but political treason, not constitutional treason. And that's tragic. Let's just pray to God that they're not consciously just slow walking these tax issues like they did Obamacare, and that we don't
we've
have a
seen them
bunch
do
of
it with
people who
Obamacare.
dislike this president.
We've seen them do it with Obamacare. We're watching it with tax reform, which is supposed to be so easy. Remember, all of the wags were suggesting they should have led with tax reform because that'd be so easy. Well, that's put the lie to those who thought so, well, conventionally and adventurously. There seems to be nothing easy on Capitol Hill these days. Governor, great to have you here. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lou.